Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast, to the Friday edition of the Royal Blue Podcast. The Premier League season is set to draw to a close on Sunday, with Everton making a trip to St James's Park to face Newcastle United. We are here to preview that game, but we'll also look back at what has been an historic week for Everton Football Club. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio to do so and to talk all things Everton, we've got Tony Scott. Tony, you're looking very blue today, almost like camouflaged into the back of the royal blue colour there. I love that top. Where'd you get that from?
It's been a very, very blue week, hasn't it?
It has.
It has. And do you know what? We'll speak about it shortly, but just seeing Goodison Park and everyone dressed in blue for such a special occasion, it was really, really good. Just to see Goodison the way it was, and we'll speak about it now, sure. But yeah, listen, we're always proud to be an Evertonian, but this week I think we all puffed our chests out. That do you know what? It's even more so. So proud to be an Evertonian this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the fundamental thing that I've taken from this. Well, there's two actually, and again we can go into it, but so proud of everyone at the club, everyone around the club, the fans, to make that a special day. But it just goes to prove just how big a club we are. I think there's always question marks on just how big Everton are, because obviously our recent history and the poor league positions and obviously lack of trophy wins. I think for me, not even a thing, I know how big Everton are. Just looking at the pictures.
It surprised me
a little bit.
It surprised me, and I think what surprised me is that was 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. That's just the majority of that is local fan base. Yeah. We're sharing the city with the most successful team who's just about to win the Premier League this weekend, and you're going, hang on a minute, how is that possible? How was the 40,000 in that stadium?
With United and City down the road as well, by the way.
City United down the road, with Liverpool about to win the league, sharing the city with them, which has been obviously a nightmare for the past 20-odd, 30-odd years in terms of success. And then we've got about 10,000 on the streets as the game's going on. It's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. We've got a season ticket waiting list longer than the M1. You go, what is going on here? The football club, and I think David Moyes touched on it so many times, is that it's so ready to burst. And what I mean by that in terms of it's ready. He's ready to spend money on players. He's ready to sign the players that we desperately need, Everton players. The fan base is there. There's so much potential that the Freakins now can tap into. There's and obviously all the vacancies and the roles behind the scenes. The fan base is the one, and I think Peter Reid touched onto it in terms of when he spoke about it on the pitch on Sunday. He said, listen, Goodison Park, we all love Goodison Park. He said, but it's not the four sides of the stadium. It's the people inside it. It's the people inside Goodison Park make it what it is. It's not the stadium. It's not from the paddock to the park end. Do you know what I mean? To the gantry to the gantry. It's none of that. It's them Evertonians that are in there. And Moyes hit the right tone. He said, I need yous, every single one of yous. What are you like it now? I want yous like this at the Bramley Moor. We need to be on it from match day one. It's no good us going down there or sitting there going taking pictures and all that. It needs to be bouncing. It needs to be rocking. It needs to be intimidating, because it's going to be new to us. So as well as it's going to be new to opposition fans and opposition teams coming to there, we need to make this horrible and nasty. We need to make it a Goodison Park too, for making sure that we are not intimidated by anyone. It doesn't matter how good they are. We've seen Goodison, the fortress that it's come this season, making sure that that happens and it repeats itself at the Bramley Moor.
I guess the good thing that people are going to be going to Bramley Moor as well.
There's going to be more.
Or the Hill Dickinson.
There's going to be the Hill Dickinson, because there's going to be 14,000 more.
Yeah.
So when you looked at Goodison there on Sunday, and obviously the thousands locked outside, the scenes outside. That's the one thing that shook me. I got there at about 9:15, and I thought I was beating the Saff. I thought, right, gonna get here and Andy, and I went, what on earth is this? It's just a sea of blue. And by the time 10 o'clock, and you just couldn't move on Goodison Road. And it weren't this is just weren't on Goodison Road or Spellow Lane. It was Stanley Park. It was Button Lane. It was County Road. It was going, what on earth? And Moyes touched on it in the press conference, said, you think we're bringing a cup on with you? You think there's teams that are fighting for league titles on a regular basis over the past 15 years that don't get them crowds. Yeah. They don't. It was stunning. And for a team that hasn't won a balloon in 30 years, it's staggering. And it surprised me. And I'm not... And sometimes, I always overegg, in terms of Everton support. I'm best support in the country. But that on Sunday was off the charts. It really was.
No, absolutely. I mean, the one standout picture, there was a couple of standout pictures, but the drone one, obviously from above, where the crowds are obviously gathering along Goodison Road. Obviously, we know the coach couldn't go down there for safety reasons, but it literally all the way went all the way down Goodison Road to the what's his name, the Holy Trinity statue. Like that, it was just insane. And obviously, say Stanley Park, right by the club shop. I don't know how many thousands of people there, but I mean,
don't forget, like people were. I think what was touching as well, and I noticed it. I noticed it about 10, 11 o'clock, is that people were queuing to get in as well, the stadium. Everyone wanted to get in there early. Normally, people are having a pint in the pubs on County Road and listening to Zedcard, just getting in for 5 to 3. I think there was queues to actually get into the turnstile. And I think that's where, I heard a rumour that the Upper Gladys Street ran out of ale.
I think a couple of concourses did, didn't he?
And that's because a lot of supporters got there early.
Yeah.
So where they obviously would have been able to sustain the periods of time when fans were just jotting in last minute, basically Evertonians drank the place dry before kick-off because everyone got in there early. So all of a sudden the concourse is going, we've sold all our ale. That was meant to be for, obviously, during the game and afterwards for the ceremony, because Evertonians were coming in the droves. That was inside the stadium and outside as well. Honest, this football club is ready to burst. It really, really is. It just needs getting the right recruitment. And as we've seen this season, Newcastle, Crystal Palace have won the first trophy since their existence. Newcastle won their first trophy in 70 years. Liverpool about to win the league, their second league in 30 odd years. And I'm not saying we can compete with them, but there's scope there to go far in competitions.
Well, you've got to believe, haven't you? Otherwise, what's the point?
Exactly. And I think next season we should be aiming for conference. That's our aim. We should be aiming for 8th, 7th, 8th. We should be, again, the recruitment. Moyes has shown this season that he can set a team up against the best. Yeah. And that's with the players we've got.
Even with the quality that we've got, or lack of quality.
We do 2-2 with the current Premier League champions. The argument to say that we should have got something at Anfield. And all the other teams we've been through with Arsenal, Chelsea, we just got beat off 1-0. And that's what these are the top teams that are currently in amongst in the Premier League. Yeah. They're going, hang on, Aston Villa, we've pit our wits into these. And it shows you with the right players, we've got the right manager. And he knows Everton. He spoke about it so many times, and he threw the gauntlet down to the fans, and he also threw the gauntlet down to the owners as well. If you'd noticed on the mic, he said, I just wish the owners, and now not many managers do that after walking through the door after 3 or 4 months. Not many managers have got the bottle to go, right, owners, look at this, look what you've got. Threw the gauntlet down.
Well, he knows that he's got less time compared to his first stint, whereas he could probably have been a bit more patient, in his first tenure. Now he knows that, okay, we probably do need to be a little bit patient, but, he's not going to be here for another 12, 13 years, whatever it was.
Do you think because of what's happened at West Ham, he's got his taste for the European trophy? Yeah. He's probably thinking, I've got 2 years here. Yeah. I've got the bit between my teeth. I've seen this fan base. I've got unfinished business here. I want to make sure that I'm bringing a trophy back here.
He's got a different mindset since he's come back, and we've seen only glimpses of that. Hopefully we're going to see more. I think as well, there's a lot of people saying, well, he's just laying the foundations for hopefully the next person to come in. Moyes won't be thinking that. He knows he's got to lay the foundations, but he's going to want to take it on. Whether he signs a new contract or not, who knows? That's obviously looking a little bit too far ahead. The foundations kind of have already been laid a little bit, in the past couple of months. Now he's got to build on that. What is it, probably 2 years left on his deal, 18 months. He's without a doubt going to want to win a trophy, and he's got the taste for it already from the West Ham. His time at West Ham. Yeah.
You can see we've got a different version of David Moyes, and I like what he said on the pitch in front of the Glasgow Streets. He said, when I came here, it was a broken club, and it's not broken anymore. Yeah. And you could just see from Sunday.
No, it was a great line.
And you know what? The Glasgow Street just jumped up and applauded him, because they knew when he did come in, it was broken. There was a big divide in the fan base and the manager.
A lot of people didn't want Moyes to come back.
Exactly, a lot of them. And listen, there's still fans that go, hang on, well, he's kept us up. The 3 teams that are being poor anyway, probably there's an argument to say that Sean Dyche probably would have kept Everton up anyway, judging by what the 3 teams have served up since. But look where we are at 13th. We're going to finish 13th. It's like the job he's done, the points accumulation, the football, the goals scored. I know everyone's like saying like James Tarkowski's goal is like obviously goal of the season, one of the most iconic moments. But for me personally, and what makes a big difference in terms of what the Everton that we're watching compared to the previous manager is Iliman Ndiaye's goal against Tottenham. It was a 1-2 on the halfway line with just a guy, and that was football. That is why we go the match. Yeah. And you're sitting there and you go, whoa, wow. And even for the co-commentators and the commentators at the time going, that is school of science stuff. That is goals. That is why you go to watch Everton.
It was quite surprising because we hadn't seen anything like that in a long time, had we?
When was the last time you seen that?
To break a little bit, create the space, score the way.
Take two players on and put in the top corner, and you go, wow, what was that? And Goodison was up. It was up, and you go, wow, what is this? It was just, that for me, that's I know obviously Tarky will probably get goal of the season, but for me that was one of the iconic moments, is that we're going to play offensive football here. I'm not going to say like Moyes is going to go hell for leather and run at teams. He's not naive enough. He's too far along in the tooth and too experienced to do that. But we are seeing a more offensive team than probably what we've ever seen for long periods of time under David Moyes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that Tottenham game's got to be up there with one of the most memorable games of the season, just for the fact that we were 3-0 up, and then the heart attacks that took place towards the end of the game. But the first half performance, probably one of the best that we've seen under Moyes this season. I mean, we've had a couple of those, haven't we? Yeah. Really good first or second half performances where the other half hasn't been as good. But that is just building on what we've got, and I can't.
But it was like that on Sunday, wasn't it? Really, because we obviously blew them out the water in the first half an hour.
Any nerves when we went 2-0 up?
Yeah. Do you know what I think personally? I think the players, I wouldn't say going through the motions, but I think the players probably understood the gigantic scale of not wanting to lose this game, and they were just playing safe passes. Don't get me wrong, they were trying to hit Southampton on the counters, but they were going like, we do not want to throw this away. Yeah. This is the last game ever at this fantastic stadium. All eyes are on us. We do not want to be remembered for throwing away a typical 2-0 lead, and everyone wants to say, typical Everton throwing that away. There was just safe passes going on here, and you could just see even a guy just passing it to Mikalenko going inside, and it was just back and forth. I think the players would go, right, just don't lose this. Do not lose this. If we can counter and get a third, great.
Which we did try to do, by the way.
Of course they did, and that was by right, but I think it was just a lot more about the scale of the game and the moment, rather than actually going for the third and fourth, etc. But yeah, it was a fantastic day, and it'll probably live long in the memory. And we'll touch on it now, the ex-players, and it was great. It really was, and we all probably shed the tears. And I know I definitely did. Yep. Especially when obviously the violin produced Ed Cars.
Was that your stand-up moment?
Yeah, for me. Yeah. I was sitting there and I was going, right, I'm holding my own here, and I'd seen the ex-players, and do you know what? Obviously, I've spoken to a lot of Evertonians since, and we obviously the presenters, they were speaking to Tarkowski and Pickford and Rooney and Duncan and Seamus, and I go, a part of me would have wanted to have heard from Bob Latchford, from Joe Royle, from Tony Kay, from all the great 95, like the great 95 team. Would have loved to hear from Anders Limpar and Paul Rideout. Would have been great to hear from them. But obviously it's a shame that never happened. But just to see them and to understand as well, like there's a lot of 60s and 70s players there that they probably thinking, I'm forgotten about here. But it just shows you how much appreciated they are with the Everton fan base, because we all go to match from all different generations. My dad obviously loved the 1980s team and the 1970s team. My uncle and my dad's mates loved the 1960s team. I fell in love with the 1995 team. That was my team. And then obviously the likes of Kale, and they're the ones that we were brought up on. And it was just great to see different generations and to how appreciative they are. But obviously when the Z Cars came on, and when it was produced from the violin, you were trying to hold it in. And the next bit, when you seen the toffee lady like swinging a basket, just that lone figure walking across Goodison Park, and then you see that she just turned around to the glad seat and started waving. I went, that set me, because my niece was a toffee lady last season, and obviously it was a great day to watch her, and I just looked at it, I was reminiscing, and just that's when I went then. I thought that for me was like, whoever thought of that idea, fair play to it, was fantastic.
That moment was fantastic. I mean, the violinist was tremendous, and the toffee lady walking across towards the Lower Gladys. There must have been a video leaked a couple of months back of that very rehearsal. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen it. It was pitch black.
Yeah, it was pitch black. So I don't know whether they were rehearsing it because they were expecting a night game, but obviously that video. We can't show you on the YouTube channel, but if you've seen it, you'll obviously understand that, watching that, thinking, remember watching that for the first time and started like getting emotional.
Sure, yeah.
And even then, even though it was in the daylight, along with every other fan, you know, that it was emotional and see it in my eye. I mentioned it on the pod the other day. My emotion was kind of at the start of the game, before the game. I think the game itself could just calm me down a little bit, but everything else afterwards was tremendous.
What got you before the game?
It was the Lars,
Yeah.
and There She Goes, and the Elton John song as well.
Yeah.
That's why they call it the blues. I'm pretty sure that was played at the
It was
the start.
What's in terms of incorporating There She Goes at the Bramley Moor?
I'm all for it, yeah. I mean, I've seen a number of people say just leave it where it is, but I think for me, Sunday was obviously the end of an era, but it was also the start of something new. Obviously, with the introduction of or the announcement of Hill Dickinson and what the stadium naming rights are going to be. You know, we're talking about Goodison now on Sunday, but it is still all systems go for Bramley Moor in the new season. I think, you know, the song itself, you can adopt things, can't you, as a fan? And this has been organic. The way this has happened. I think sometimes
it's not rehearsed, is it? It just happens.
Sometimes things can be forced, and that could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be a song related to your club. You know, I know the guy who was the lead singer of the band was an Everton fan, but it's not necessarily an Everton song. But it doesn't matter, does it?
Doesn't resonate with football at all.
Exactly.
Really, yeah?
It's just natural the way it's happened. I would definitely take that to Bramley Moor. Definitely.
And I think, you know what? I think I touched on this in terms of speaking to someone else. Like, it'll be so good for like in 30, 40, 50 years' time when our grandkids are sitting there at the Bramley Moor and they'll be going, right, why did he sing? Why, say, for example, lots to say, like, why did he come out to Z cards and etc. Why did Liverpool come out to You Never Walk Alone, etc. And I go, why did he sing There She Goes? And then look, like, obviously historians can obviously let them know that was the song that they incorporated on the last day at Goodison, and they brought it to the Bramley Moor.
Yeah, well, it's in reference to Goodison, isn't it? But, you know, we should still take a little bit of Goodison with us. And this is a thing that
that's the whole point. We're taking Goodison with us to the... It's no good. Obviously, it's still Everton Football Club. That's just a stadium we played 133 years worth of football in. Yeah. And we're trying to recapture as much as Goodison Park as possible. In an ideal world, we'd love to build a bigger Goodison Park on the Bramley Moor Stadium, but we can't. But obviously, it's not sustainable. So what we're trying to do is fixate as much of Goodison Park as we can at the Bramley Moor. And that's the aim. It doesn't matter if it's songs, it doesn't matter if it's a part of Goodison, wherever that may be. We're going to have to recapture that. That's what David Moyes said. He said, I need every single bit of this down there from day one. Yeah. He needs it because he knows it's a powerful tool that not many Premier League football clubs have got. Not many football clubs could go through 30 years without winning a single thing. And as I touched on, share a city with the most successful club in England and still get support like that. No one does. No one does it. No. On a Sunday morning. It doesn't happen. Everton Football Club can do that. And that's why the Freakins they've got to touch on it. Honestly, the football club's ready to burst. It really is.
Well, fingers crossed. I mean, we'll just stick with Goodison and the final game for the next couple of minutes. Ndiaye, just happy that he got the final goal for Everton. Obviously, go down as a history maker.
He will, yeah. And I think he scored the last goal in front of the Gladys Street, if I remember rightly, against Arsenal.
Okay.
He was the last player to score there. I think West Ham. Was West Ham after the Arsenal game? I think West Ham was before it, wasn't it? So I think Jake O'Brien was probably to score the last outfield goal in front of the Gladys Street, the header against West Ham. And then obviously Arsenal was after West Ham, if I remember rightly, which Ndiaye scored. And since then we haven't scored a goal in front of the Gladys Street.
No.
So Liam Delap was the last player to score in front of the Gladys Street, and he's the last player to score at Goodison Park. So I think it suits. I think it's the one player that we've got in terms. Every football team's got that star man, haven't they? Into like Liverpool have got Salah, and obviously City have had De Bruyne. He's our magic man, isn't he? He's the one that probably kids would say get majority of their names on their shirts. Yeah. Ndiaye. When we're selling the kit this summer, I presume, I would guess that he'd probably be the most. He'd be the player that most Evertonians would want to get on the back. He's our little...
Not Beto, no. Not Beto.
Bet offside.
Yeah. I knew you'd bring that up.
We're waiting for this. No, jokes aside, no, Ndiaye, he's our star man, isn't he? And I think it's poignant that he should be the player that scores the last goal at Goodison Park.
No, I mean, just on his performance, I thought it was probably looking like he was starting to get back to his best. I think that injury obviously has hampered him as he went off injured in the Merseyside derby. All those months ago, that you forget that he actually went off, and it was Harrison who come on. Because I do think since he's come back, whether he was rushed back, I don't know, but he certainly hasn't been as sharp, has he? I think that was probably one of the first times since then that he thought he's looked sharp here. And the goals were just typical Iliman and Dye goals.
And do you know what we need to do, Ian? We need to get players on his level.
Yeah.
Because there's not many players in that Everton team on his level. I'd say Branthwaite, there's not many apart from that. They're the levels we need to be at in the summer. We can't be looking at Jack Harrison's, and obviously we touch on better. They're not on them levels. We need to get as many players on the same level as Branthwaite and Diane. They're the two outfield players that walk in the majority of Premier League teams. They are the players, and we need to get as many of them in the door. Obviously, it's just a guy and James Conner. They're not on them levels, and we need to get as many of them in as possible in the summer.
Absolutely. I mean, just is there anything that you could say to sum up on Sunday? I mean, the Monday, I played the blinder, booking it off, because although I wasn't too hungover, I just spent the morning just sitting on the couch, just watching the coverage back, looking at the videos, you know, TNT, obviously your videos, like the stuff on the Echo website, and everything that was just posted on social media. I mean, even the club stuff. I must have just had my phone like doom scroll and just constantly looking. It was on a little bit of a come down. I think I've started to bring myself back up a little bit, because you can look back at it now and go, what a tremendous day. We did everything proud. I just felt like, I don't know how quick you left Goodison after it was kind of like all over, but it was such a weird atmosphere outside the ground afterwards. It genuinely did feel like you just left a funeral and you were going back to the aftermath of it, because no one was singing. No one was kind of, they were happy, but they weren't too happy. There wasn't really any talk, and it was so eerie and surreal outside Goodison after the whole celebrations. Imagine
if you'd visited this city for the first time ever at the weekend, and someone told you one team's about to win the league, and one team's about to just say goodbye to the ground, just plays footballer.
Yeah.
You go, what? What on earth's that? What on earth's that? And if you met someone that's not into football, and they say why do you so obsessed with football, and why do you love Everton? You just plant them at Goodison Park. You plant them in L4 on Sunday. You go, right, that's why. That is why everything, doesn't matter, everything from the ex-players to the atmosphere to Goodison Park to the football club to the players, the fans, the flares, the banners, the ticket tape, the fireworks, everything. That's why we support Everton. That is, there's no other words to describe that. It meant so much, and to see the scenes then filter into County Road, then filter into Liverpool City Centre. That's what it's going to be when we're playing at the Bramley Mall. Yeah. That's what it's going to be. It's like we're going to be invading Liverpool City Centre after matches, and that's just
just imagine if we get good. I said this the other day. Imagine if we were good.
I think Jamie Carragher said it on Monday Night Football. He said, "Imagine if they had a good side."
Not wrong though, is he?
Imagine if they got a good side. Like, they've been fighting relegation after season after season, points deduction, hadn't won a carrot in 30 years, tasted one final in 30 years. It's bonkers. We're celebrating the team there coming on the pitch. The last won a trophy in 1995. Funny enough, 30 years this week. It's bonkers. It's ridiculous. The support that this football club has got, it's off the charts. It really, really is. And so proud to be an Evertonian this week. And again, I've probably referenced it too many times, but we're sharing the city with a team that's about to lift the Premier League title this weekend. You wouldn't know. You would know compared to what you've seen, because Everton's just so proud. Normally we'd be going, I'm dreading watching this Liverpool parade.
I really care.
Evertonians are so proud of their football team and what they've got.
Yeah.
Normally 5 or 6 years ago, I'm dreading Liverpool, I don't want them to win this. And it's like Evertonians are oblivious to what's going on across Stanley Park. They're so fixated on the football club now. And how great is that? How brilliant is it to see now we're so passionate about what's happening in front of our eyes more than what's worrying. We're concentrating on what's going on across the park. We're so excited for the future with the manager, the recruitment and the stadium we got. It's so refreshing.
Interesting point there that you make, and this was brought up after the game when I was out and about with a couple of mates. The fact that we're moving to Bramley Moor, obviously there's the phrase across the park. The fact that we're moving to Bramley further away from Liverpool, do you see that as a good thing as well, as part of it? To be further away from Liverpool, not to be as associated with them as what we are now, again, from across the park. Or we're still in the same city, I get that. We're still fairly close, but, we are, Goodison and Anfield are just so close to each other, aren't they, in the same vicinity, that when you look at both, outsiders might think, well, Anfield and then Goodison and Everton might come secondsy just because of recent history and what we've won and what they've won. But like I say, we're just away from them now.
I think it's a massive big culture change for Everton now going forward. And the reason I'm saying that is that we've got a presence in the city centre. We've never had it. Do you come to any Evertonian? If you come into Liverpool city centre on a weekend, you just know you'll just see Liverpool shirts everywhere. You'll see them because they're going to Liverpool Stadium, and obviously we haven't got that attraction yet. We have now got a presence in Liverpool city centre because you're gonna see Everton pubs and bars dotted around because there's scope for custom. So you're gonna see lots of Everton fans invading Liverpool city centre now on a weekend basis.
Even before or the game, you'll see fans just like saying, well, I'll get there early and I'll just go see Liverpool.
And you're going to
see
tourists who are visiting Liverpool city centre for the first time, and naturally they go, I want to go and tour Liverpool Stadium. Yeah. But now you've got a world-class stadium on the waterfront that's 15 minutes away. Going, hang on, well, if I was to visit, say, I don't know, a city in Italy or in Spain, whatever it may be, and I'm in the city centre going, I want to see that one there on the front. It's iconic. It's on the Mersey. It's on. Yeah. It's. Do you know what I mean? It's a big landmark. I want to see that because I can walk straight towards the Liverpool city centre and back. 15-minute walk along. Nice walk. Summer's day. Happy days. I want to go and tour that stadium. I want to go and have something to eat in it. That's what you want to feel, and that's what Everton now have got a presence in Liverpool city centre. And they've never had that before. They've just been the neighbours of Liverpool. Now, with the stadium on the waterfront, bang, there you go. There's loads of scope now for the next generation of Evertonians to be so proud and have a presence in Liverpool city centre.
And let's not forget we're keeping an Everton presence in L4 as well.
Of course.
Everton itself, the name is going to be dotted around everywhere, isn't it?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, we will move on from Sunday. I mean, we could speak about it forever, and we've still got...
Because...
This is actually, I didn't mention, obviously, we're not live today. This is a pre-recorded show. So we've got a Goodison Memory Special, which has already gone out. And Connor O'Neill, Gav Buckland and Dan Haygarth recorded that. And that is, you can get access to that now on the Royal Blue YouTube channel and Royal Blue audio platforms. So if you want to go back and listen to anything, Goodison Historic Day, final day, you can do so on the Royal Blue podcast. Let's move on.
Sorry, finally, just before I wrap up, one thing I will say about Sunday that just recaptures it brilliantly is that TNT's coverage of the aerial shots above Goodison and the drone footage was like, wow. We're so lucky we live in this generation now where you've seen the drone footage in social media. Imagine if Goodison Park was to have finished 15, 20 years ago. We wouldn't have got the coverage. We wouldn't have been like my dad, for example, he weren't fortunate enough to be there. He wouldn't have been able to see Goodison like that on the telly. Yeah. It just would have been a match and that was it. You know what I mean? Now, like the first thing my dad said to me on the phone, he said, Tony said, I've seen it. I said, I couldn't believe it. I said, the footage, they were showing you shots above Stanley Park, right round County Road, through the terrace streets,
fans everywhere.
And you were going, what? And for me dad to notice that and that, he wouldn't have been able to see that 15, 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean? So it's so rewarding, and it's great to see that, that footage. That we're going to keep that. We'll be able to show, obviously, our kids, and obviously, going forward, that's our fan base there.
There's
for you.
So many iconic videos and pictures from Sunday. It's just insane, and you are right. Probably wouldn't have got that all those years ago. But it's timing is everything, I guess.
It is, yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's talk about Abdoulaye Doucoure. He's confirmed his exit from Everton this summer. He did so via a video message from his social media accounts. He obviously beat the club to it. His contract is obviously up on the 30th of June, and Everton have we don't really know yet as such, but declined to take up an option to extend his current terms. There's obviously been a bit of to and fro and back and forth. We know that he didn't take up the option to, keep him on the existing terms, and obviously Big Abdoulaye wants more money probably than what Everton were prepared to offer him. What do you make of his exit, and is it the right decision?
I think it probably suits both parties, doesn't it?
Just the right time.
Yeah, some things are meant to be, and I think it's right. Can we afford to house a player on what he was demanding? We don't know what he was demanding. But one thing's fair to say.
He was expecting a pay rise by the sound of it.
We can't afford to be paying him what he's currently on now as a number 10.
At his age as well.
At his age, and getting 3 goals a season from, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Not many assists, if any.
1 assist and 3 goals from a number 10 that's played, I'd say, 90% of the games this season. Don't get me wrong, he scored lots of iconic goals and winning goals, but you can't house a player on, say, I'm plucking figures out the area, say for argument's sake, 80 grand a week. We can't afford that. Do you know what I mean? That's like, yeah, as a squad player, but not someone who's not going to be. We'd hope that we're better than that. I know I'm going to reference this so many times on future podcasts, is that does Doucoure get that wage at a top 8 club in the Premier League? We shall see.
Yeah.
But will he get a game with a top 8 club? Well, does he get in Brighton's team? Does he get in Newcastle team? Does he get in Villa's? Does he get in Chelsea's, Newcastle's, Liverpool's, City?
No, the answer is no to
exactly.
All that,
and we want to become that, don't we? So why should we be housing players like that who are contributing with 3 goals a season in a number 10 role? It just doesn't add up.
I think it'd be interesting to see where he does go. I mean, there'd be not concern, but I guess there would be a little bit of concern if he went to another Premier League club, maybe one of the promoted teams. I don't know whether Leeds would be interested in him. I'm sure they'd be the only one of those clubs who'd be able to afford his wages. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I think for all intents and purposes, his future maybe lies Saudi. He's just had the kid.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just speculating here, but he thinks I can secure my future even further by going to Saudi. And why would he not want to do that? He might want to stay in the Premier League. I don't know, but I think that is the point. Where's he going to go in the Premier League that is better than Everton? Because I'd probably say the top 10 clubs wouldn't go in for him. They might go in for him and say, listen, Abdoulaye, you're coming in, but you're a squad player. We know you can do a job. We know you've got experience. But again, you're not going to be on 80 to 100 grand a week.
Yeah, same position as Everton.
So in that case, then, from his point of view, why would he not have stayed at Everton if that's kind of what was on the table? So I think his future does probably lie abroad, and that probably, the Saudi money is there, and I'm sure
I think it suits both parties.
Wish him well.
Yeah, of course. Listen, he's a player that's always stuck at it, presses. You wouldn't say he's probably one of the most gifted players. You look at it on the eye, he's not easy on the eye, is he, in terms of like watching him? No. You're like, how's he controlling that ball? He just doesn't seem to be in control of a football many times. So he's off the cuff, he's always pressing. But don't get me wrong, he scores quite a lot of important goals for Everton, probably more iconic than the Bournemouth one, which have probably, I think, I was reading something that is probably I think, into all the games I've been going to Goodison, that's the loudest I've heard a goal. That's the loudest I've heard. Don't get me wrong, Tarkowski springs to mind, and what, but that, Sean Dyche was that said it. The springs to mind. He said that's the loudest I've ever heard a goal at a football match. He's been involved in football a long time, hasn't he? But yeah, listen, thanks for the goal, thanks for the memories, and I think it suits both parties, doesn't it? We're better than Abdoulaye Doucoure. Yeah. We want better than him. We want a better number 10 in that role. We want someone who's going to be bringing in 10 to 15 goals. That's what we want as a number 10, do you know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with, obviously, Charlie Alcaraz's situation. Now that he's gone, Will Moyes gone, well, can afford to let him go. So, yeah, fascinating to see what happens over these forthcoming weeks.
I described his goal against Bournemouth as the most important goal in Everton's history. Would you agree with that, or is there any others that,
most important? Gareth Farrelly?
Yeah.
Because I think at the time, with Everton, he probably would have been a scope if Everton was got relegated that year when Doucoure scored. It's like Leeds, Leicester. Leeds got relegated. Leicester got relegated. They come back up. I don't think it was a challenging time. Whereas I think at the time when Gareth Farrelly scored, I look at what happened to the likes of Coventry and Sheffield Wednesday at the time. Back. It took them 15 years to come back, and Sheffield Wednesday and Coventry are still there. I think at that time, if Everton would have went in 1998, that could have been the end for us for quite long periods of time. I think it's right up there, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think to compare the two, I think it would have been, it's disastrous if you get relegated anyway, but obviously at that time, you are right, the teams you went, they never really came back up straight away. However, if Doucoure doesn't score that goal and we don't win that game, we get the point deduction the next season, don't we?
Yeah.
So, can you imagine if we were forced to take a point deduction in the Championship? Like, that would have been absolutely catastrophic.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So,
good point.
You know, he doesn't score that goal, we don't win that game. So, I think either or, really, isn't it? For the Valerie one and Doucoure.
Do you know what, from a personal perspective as well, it was probably the first season that my lad was getting into football. Right. He was starting to love Everton. He was starting to like collect footy stickers and watch football. And it coincided the same season that we were getting relegated. I thought, this can't happen, please. I was going to the match, I was shaking.
It'd be horrendous, that,
I imagine, like, and he was getting, he said, Daddy, we playing? And he was checking scores and fixtures and obsessed with football. I thought, this is going to be a nightmare. Honestly, I was going to that Bournemouth game going, please, please, please. I'd teasing me, I was going, this can't happen. And that's why I've never lost it at a match as much as that Bournemouth game, because it meant so much personally.
Yeah. I mean, it was a horrendous day.
Oh, it was. It was
the build-up, anyway.
And do you know what I'll notice about that? The Crystal Palace one, it was like a euphoria and everything else, and Coventry and the Wimbledon one. I think because obviously what the animosity between the boards at the time with the Bournemouth game, not many people invaded the pitch that game. It was like that with this. I know we always say this can't be allowed to happen again, but that was like, wow, this was like, seriously, we were so close. It was like at half time we were down. It was 0-0 at half time. Leicester was it Leeds or Leicester were winning? We were done.
I don't know if you ever watched the coverage back. It was on Sky.
I don't want to be honest.
No, but I recorded it and watched it back, and because in the studio on that game, Everton were in the relegation zone because Leicester were winning. The tension in the studio, like just watching. Obviously, I knew we were safe by watching it back at this point, but it was kind of like, Everton need to score here. Whereas in the stadium, because we couldn't see the league table, even though we were in the relegation zone. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because the tension there, there was still nerves, but it wasn't like, right, we're down if we don't score here. We knew we were, but to see it in front of you on the telly like that.
Imagine throwing that on the big screen.
Exactly. So I feel like in the stadium, maybe the nerves weren't as bad as it was the tension in the studio.
Imagine being an Evertonian watching that at home. Oh,
I mean, obviously with Doucoure's exit and the fact that he's going, that always brings in a couple of subplots, and you've already mentioned them there. But Alcaraz now, does that kind of make his signing a little bit more important, considering that he's already been integrated into the team? He knows how things work. He knows how David Moyes works. It's not like he's a new player that would come in the summer and he's got to get up to scratch straight away. Now he's a blue. He's already part of it. We know how good he is technically. I think there's probably still more to come. He's certainly better than what Abdoulaye Doucoure can offer from a technical point of view. I think we obviously want Alcaraz to be contributing to goals and assists. That goes without saying. That's got to be every player. I think the fee banded around was 12 million if he was to play a certain number of games. He hasn't reached that. So there's obviously a bit of room for negotiation from us and his parent club. So is he a signing that you think that we must make? You seem a bit unsure there.
Yeah, the only reason why, because if you was probably asked me this question maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago when he scored the win against Crystal Palace, was all for it.
Yeah.
But I think since
there's better out there.
We haven't. No, I wouldn't say there's better out there, but I don't think the manager seems convinced.
I think he hasn't been, but I think he started to over the last couple of games.
Why didn't he start on Sunday?
I honestly think.
Do you think what Moyes loves? And if your number 10 is not contributing, and I'm going to use Doucoure as an example, if your number 10 isn't scoring 10 goals a season, what does he do? So with Doucoure, so he's not scoring 10 a season, but he's pressing from the off, and that's one thing Doucoure's got in his arm. That he's pressing from the front, he's chasing, and that's one thing he's fit as anything.
Off the ball ability to do whatever he wants.
Alcaraz, for all his qualities on the ball, he doesn't press. He presses in like fits and starts. He's not intense, and that's the thing when you go and watch these Premier League teams, that the intensity of the game. When we were playing Newcastle on the last game on Sunday, it's like,
do you want your number 10 to be doing that?
Well, if they're not contributing with goals, they have to be. Yeah, what are they there for?
No, so I understand your point.
If you can house, I don't know, for example, a De Bruyne whose legs are clearly gone, but he's contributing with 15 assists and 10 goals a season, that's where you can house players like that. Liverpool have got them, do you know what I mean? Liverpool have got about 6 or 7 players that can play in a number 10 role there quite easily. Obviously, there's lots of players that can play in there for the likes of Newcastle and Villa. Is it Jacob Ramsey that plays for Aston Villa? And it's like there's quite a lot of them. So Morgan Rodgers, you've got players in there that play number 10. Well, 10 assists a season, 10 goals, great. But we haven't got a player that A is scoring them goals or B pressing. So you need to either do one or the other. And if Alcaraz was to start every single game next season at the Bramley Moor in that number 10 role, what would you think would be his numbers? By judging by what you've seen so far, would you say he's getting 10 or 15 goals and 10 assists?
He's probably getting more assists, if I'm going to be honest. I don't know, his goal scoring record. I don't think it's amazing. It's an impossible question, isn't it? Really, I guess the only thing that you would say with regards to that, if he is the number 10 and he's the regular number 10, you just need him to contribute regularly to goals and assists.
I would like him to be our regular number 10. I'd have him as a squad player. I think for 12, 13 million, a little bit of a negotiation, I think you can have him as a good squad player. But I think there's better out there, and I'm not saying in the Championship or in the French League, I think, and I'm not saying for the value as well, by the way, that's why scouts and obviously recruitment teams they get paid to go and watch these players. I think there's better out there that we can go and get in a number 10 role. We may have to pay an extra 10 million for it, but I'd rather pay the extra 10 million and get someone who's contributing with 10 assists and 15 goals, something like that, in that number 10 role. Considering what we've got.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because he's a player who's come in and he's had a bit of an impact, but no major impact as such. I think when we first saw him, and obviously the Palace game was probably one of his standout performances. You think, right, we've got a player here on loan. He's clearly technically good on the ball. He can pass, and obviously got a decent shot on him as well. And I think as well, Beto benefits from him being in the team as well with some of his through balls that he can put through. I agree. I don't think Moyes is completely sold on him, but again, I just wouldn't be surprised if he is, he's signed in the summer.
I'll have him as a squad player, but to start games at the new stadium.
It just depends who's out there, doesn't it? Who else you're going to bring in?
Well,
I know you mentioned a couple of players who do the job that you've just mentioned, but can we afford those players?
And I don't think Ndiaye worked when Everton used him in a number 10 role against the home game a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it?
I mentioned...
And it didn't work, and you could see, I think he changed something straight away. To be honest, I probably prefer Dwight McNeil in that role rather than Alcaraz.
Number 10.
Yeah. Because one thing, Dwight McNeil's got a hell of a shot on him, and he can put a pass through. I think Dwight McNeil will get better numbers in a number 10 role than Alcaraz.
I've advocated for that in the past. I know me and Joe Thomas have had heavy debates on that. I mentioned this the other week that we need to stop experimenting with our players. We need to find Iliman Ndiaye's position. We need to find Alcaraz's position. We need to find McNeil's position. Now, I know McNeil's seemingly a bit of a utility player because he's played everywhere this season, even left back. But I want Ndiaye to be a specialist left midfielder. That's where he's obviously predominantly played now. If Moyes thinks he's the number 10 and he plays well there, then that's his position. That's where he should play. Interestingly, I think McNeil, since he's come back, has benefited from playing on the right. I think it benefits him a lot more being able to cut in on his left foot. And he's able to put a few more dangerous crosses in. And he's, if you look at the modern day winger now, that's what a modern day winger would do. If you're a left footer, okay, you can obviously play on the left, but predominantly now, if you're a left footer winger, you play on the right and you cut in.
Well, that's what Liverpool have been successful this season, haven't they? Everyone said that's one thing on the slot said about Liverpool's fullbacks now. They're not overlapping, they're underlapping. They're cutting inside quite a lot. I think you've seen the goal. It was Conor Bradley cut inside.
That helps with the fullback overlapping.
Of course, yeah. So I think it's a change in how teams are now playing.
Do you think Moyes will stick with the same formation? Forget style, like how we set up and stuff like that. In terms of formation, so are we going to stick with the 2 holding, then the number 10, and then the 2 wide, and then the 1 front? Do you think we'll stick with that?
I think he'll stick. I think he'll know what he wants and currently what he's got.
Played with that with West Ham.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, listen, it was Bone, wasn't it? Off whoever the centre forward was, whether it be Antonio or Kudus or whatever it was. So he'll always play them two. So it's like Thomas Soucek in the middle alongside another centre midfielder. That's where I think we found it at large parts in the past, especially the last 4 or 5 home games, is that our midfield's wide open. And I'm unsure that David Moyes is happy with James Garner in there. I've been hopefully wanting to see more from James Garner again. it's contribution to the team. It just seems to me as if he's like,
I think Alcaraz could benefit
nothing.
there, you know.
He's busy doing nothing, if that kind of makes sense. Garner, you're like going, you should be, your centre midfield.
We've had this
here,
conversation, haven't we?
and we're going, it's just a guy, James Garner, in the middle of midfield, doesn't get in the top 10 sides. Doesn't happen. So again, it's something that we need to improve on. They're the key areas for me, the spine of that team. We've got the centre-backs, we've got the goalkeeper, centre midfielder and your centre forward. They're the key areas where Everton needs to improve on the summer.
I mean, another player who can obviously play in that position if we need him to, Harrison Armstrong, had a fantastic loan spell at Derby. I think they love him over there, don't they?
Yeah.
Obviously played a lot of games. He's still building for the future in terms of fitness and physique. And I think, do you think it'd become a little bit too early for him next season, or would you expect, or maybe hope to see him a little bit more? And again, we know we can play in that number 10 role.
I think Moyes is going to play this kid a lot in pre-season.
Yeah.
I think he is. I think the way he spoke about him as well. Normally when you get a manager first come in, they'll let me say, he's one for the future. We'll have a look. He may be a loan, mate. He went, I'm going to have a look at him. He said,
fantastic decision to send him on loan, by the way.
Oh, yeah, and I was unsure at the time because when Derby I think when he went on loan to Derby, I think there was animosity at the club.
He wasn't playing.
The manager.
Didn't start.
I think they just sacked the manager in the same week. They were getting relegated. They were playing poor. I think they won one game in about 4 or 5 months. So you'd think, hang on, that's not healthy for a young player to be going into that environment straight away. But he's obviously, I like him. I've been banging the drum for the past 12 months. I think he should have been in our first team. The reason I'm saying that because I think he's good enough. When you're getting players that are coming out your academy, normally you look at them and going, they're a little bit raw for me. And he's got the physique. You can quite clearly see he's got the talent. He gets his foot in. He can pick a pass out, but he's got the physique to play in the Premier League. He's a big lad for his age. And you can see why he's been a success in the Championship because of his physique. Because if he was small, but he's technically gifted, he'd probably be getting knocked off the ball quite a lot. But because of his physique as well, you looked at him and you go, Mike, he can play Premier League football, no doubt. And to play in that position as well, centre midfielder. And I think that's where James Garner is a little bit weak and he gets knocked off the ball quite a lot, is because of his physique. To play centre midfield in the Premier League, you need to be a very, very big unit. You do. You need to have legs, you need to be athletic, you need to get up and down, you need to have energy. You've got to tick a lot of boxes. And for me, Harrison Armstrong, I'm not saying he's going to be a world beater, but far from it. I watched this kid against Salford in pre-season last season. Made his debut for Everton in that game in the first team. And I went, funny enough, Joe Thomas was in reporting on it, and I was in the Everton end. And I sent a message to Joe. I said, Joe, was not like I think he was number 42, because obviously they're all mad squad numbers. And he went, it's Harrison Armstrong. I went, he's good, isn't he? He said, yeah. He said he was standing out. He was going, give me the ball. And I was going, he's a good player. That's because I didn't know about him. I come away and like, obviously you ever told us, like, what was the game like? I said, there's a kid there, Harrison Armstrong. He's very, very good. So as I was speaking to Joe, I was texting because my lad was next to me at the time. He went, who did you message then? I said, Joe, I said, what you wanted to see who the number 42 was, wasn't you? 42. And he said, yeah. And my lad said to me, he said, what's his name? He said, Harrison Armstrong. And when I said that, a couple in front of me turned around. He said, did you say Harrison Armstrong? I went, yeah. He said, that's my grandson. I said, he said, yeah. She said, you need to tuck a shirt and all that. I said, he's good, isn't he? He said, yeah, he's very good. Yeah. So it was great to see, and they were obviously so proud of him as well. And you could see then that he's got something about him that was against Salford. Do you know what I mean? He was by far you could just use demand on the ball. He was a strength in force in that midfield. And I know it was only a pre-season friendly, but you could just see straight away that he was too good at Ed Salford at the time. Just thinking, hang on, let's see what he's like. Now he's been a success at Derby. I'm excited to see what the future holds for Harrison Armstrong at Everton. I think he's built to play in the Premier League. Yeah, it will be interesting. Hence why I brought him up as part of that Doucoure exit conversation, because I think Moyes has spoke about him glowingly, and you just spoke about him glowingly as well. So we'll see. Just quickly before we just talk about Newcastle, there's a few transfer rumours. Obviously, Liam Delap, big fan of Liam, Tony, aren't you? Wouldn't mind being his agent. Yeah. So I didn't watch Monday Night Football last week, but Jamie Carragher, who was on it, believes that Liam Delap should shun interest from Manchester United and sign for Everton instead this summer. He says, quote, I don't think he should go to Manchester United. I just think the next step at Everton, you're going to play every week and feel like the main man and be one of the best players in the team. I mean, we know Moyes has actually
surprisingly spoke about him as well, hasn't he? He doesn't usually speak about opposition players. Have we got a chance now? Is all this big enough from you, Tony? Have we got a chance because of this? I honest to God, right, I'm not even joking. You were one of the first ones to mention him a while back, when obviously we had strikers who couldn't score, and no one else was mentioning him to Everton. And ever since you, it's just been like a train, a runaway train.
It wound me up. Why? And I get why we weren't in for him at the time, because obviously our financial situation. But he went to Ipswich for like 18, 19 million from City's academy. When you know some. I remember Eze when he went from, was it Eze? What's the lad who went from Reading to Crystal Palace at the time? I know when you're sitting there and you're watching a play, because I watch a lot of Championship football, and you're going, he's got a player. He's going to be a success there.
Someone's going to get a good deal.
Exactly. And you just know Crystal Palace are very, very good at it. I remember a guy that, obviously, I manage a kids' football team, and a guy in the team, his lads plays, and he said he's a Blackburn supporter. And he said to me, you know that Adam Wharton that's left Blackburn, he watches Blackburn religiously, and he said, like, Adam Wharton there, he said he's gone to Crystal Palace. He said, trust me, he won't be at Palace long. He said he'll be playing for England. And then when you see him plays like that, we should be in for them. But obviously our financial situation was a lot different at the time. And when Delap went, I was going, I know this kid's good. You know when you see some, you can listen. We just talked about stats there from our number 10, and sometimes you watch football on the eye, and you know a good player when you see one. That's where, like, obviously everyone was like comparing Delap's performance against Everton a couple of weeks ago. Don't go from that. Listen, watch him. He's a very, very good footballer. He's got a bit of nastiness about him. He can find the net. He can hold the ball up. He can get you up the pitch. He can score goals. He's a typical number 9. He'd be ideal for us down there at that stadium. He would light it up. Whether we've got the resources to get that transfer over the line, I don't know, because Everton aren't going to be the only club in for a player that scored quite a lot of goals with a club that's been relegated.
Have your expectations risen or dwindled with regards to risen?
Yeah.
United only because in for Cunha, aren't they, as well? So would that put them off now?
Well, they're going to have to sell players, aren't they? They're going to have to sell Garnacho and the likes of them, because they need to get their PSR issues sorted. I
mean, they're talking about like over 80 million here for Cunha to United. He's a very good player. That's what I'm just.
So they'll have to sell Mainu, Garnacho. So don't be surprised if a lot of Manchester City players from their academy will be released now and they'll be looking to sell.
Would United sign Cunha as well as Delap, do you think? Like, if they could afford it, what I mean in terms of fitting them in together.
Well, if they know that Mainu and Garnacho are going, then probably will. If they know that they're selling Højlund, get money back on him, getting players, it all depends on what happens. Listen, if in Champions League football next season and whatnot. So it all depends on the next couple of weeks in terms of who's speaking to who, agents speaking. Now, we know that for a fact David Moyes was watching a lot of Manchester City games before he got the Everton job. So I'm hoping that he's been watching a lot of Manchester City academy players, because you've seen the results of them. The likes of Rodgers and obviously Sancho and all these players that have come from Manchester City's academy. Delap, who we've just spoken only of, players who've released, Cole Palmer. All these players that have come from Manchester City's academy, they're brilliant. Nico Riley's playing for City at the moment. You can just tell by looking at them on the eye, they're a very good footballer. So I'm hoping that Moyes will maybe have a look at City's academy. David Moyes watched Manchester United versus West Ham a couple of weeks ago. He went to watch that. Now, whether that was to watch maybe Creswell or Kufal or Souček, we don't know. But he's obviously been watching a lot of football. And that's what I like about Moyes. He's an old school manager, isn't he?
Likes to go in person.
Exactly. He doesn't rely solely on the reports he's getting back. He'll want to watch this person. He'll want to watch what they're like as a person, what they're like as a player, the background, the family. He'll want to tick a lot of boxes. You know what David Moyes is like for recruitment. So I think when they're in the right hands in terms of signing players, I'm just hoping we could woo Delap over the line, because I think he'd be a big success at the Bromley Moor. A proper number 9. A lad that's playing every single week, doesn't really get injured, scores goals, as I touched on, holds the ball up. I think he'd be a big, big success and a big hero if it's a sign for Everton. But I'm not naive enough to think what goes on in football these days. And what I mean by that is that agents will be saying, listen, get you a United deal, you get a big signing on fee, we'll pay you, whatever, willing to pay you 80 grand a week, we'll pay you 100.
Well, that's how it works,
and that's how it's going to work, do you know what I mean? So we're not naive enough to think that's how football goes, but wouldn't it be nice to get a player who's highly thought of? And I think he'd be playing for England in a matter of time as well.
I mean, it's safe to say he's not going to be an Ipswich player next season, is he? I think as well, Tony, if we do get him, that you should demand some sort of an agent fee.
Should be saying, why weren't we in 4 years ago? But listen, there's players out there. There will be players, and you touched on it a couple of weeks ago, Ian, that there's going to be a lot of clubs in the Premier League this season that are going to be in for centre forwards.
Well, that's the problem.
I think City.
I think everyone is.
City obviously hit a wall when Rodri and Haaland this season. Now you see, arguably Salah and Van Dijk out to Liverpool's team. They don't win the league this season. Look what's happened to Arsenal. They lost their centre back and they've lost their centre forwards. They haven't won the league. So there's going to be a lot of clubs in and around the Premier League this season that are going to be wanting to, I don't know, I think Arsenal may go for Ollie Watkins, then all of a sudden Villa after the centre forward. Then it's just going to be a merry-go-round centre forward. Who's going to come in for Isak? Will Newcastle keep hold of him? If he goes, Newcastle are going to need a centre forward then. So it's going to filter down the leagues in terms of there's Liverpool there, won the league. They need a centre forward. I speak to loads of Reds going, we need a centre forward. And I go, hang on, you just won the league. You had about 6 centre forwards.
That's what
we need a number 9.
That.
I'm going, wow. So Everton, there's going to be like you were right a couple of weeks ago, Ian, there's going to be about 10 clubs in the Premier League, and Bueno, his situation, are clubs going to be looking at the likes of Wiesa and Bueno and going, Brentford are mid-table there. They've got a lad who's got 2 players there, scoring 15 goals a season each. Let's try our hands with one of them. So it's going to be fascinating to see the merry-go-round with centre forwards in the Premier League this summer.
Absolutely. We'll finish off previewing the Newcastle game. I mean, afraid to say that Newcastle have had a very good season. What have you made of them?
Yeah, good watch, aren't they? It's one of these teams that when you're sitting in the house watching a game on the television, and normally if you see, I don't know, a Southampton versus Crystal Palace, you're only going, generally 9 times out of 10 can be bothered watching this or something like that. But when Newcastle on the telly, got to get a team on the front foot, wingers, attacking, offensive play, got to get an atmosphere up there. So listen, I like Eddie Howe. When he spoke at his last press conference at Goodison, he spoke glowingly about Goodison Park and obviously his torment there as well, because I didn't realise he was an Evertonian growing up, but he also got relegated there as a Bournemouth manager, if you remember, back in COVID. So he hasn't had good experiences at Goodison Park, and he spoke about that. But yeah, I got a lot of time for Eddie Howe. Newcastle did a great watch, got really good players in that team. Again, recruitment. I know they signed Isak for a lot of money, but it's paid dividends, isn't it? In terms of like they signed Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon from us, and they've got really good players in there with natural talent. And they've also got a couple of decent academy players, and they've also got a couple of bargains as well in there as well. So they've got the perfect blends there in terms of like they signed Dan Burn, etc. So their recruitment over the years has got better and better and better. I'm sure they'll be looking to go on to bigger and better things as well if they make the Champions League. So it's going to be a tough game for us. It's one that it's going to be intriguing, isn't it? Because
are we on the beach? Do you think we'll be on the beach?
There's going to be some flip-flops on that beach.
I mean, they need to win. I mean, the Champions League, the race for the Champions League is the only thing that's been worth looking at, for the remainder of this season. Obviously, they need to win. I think a win will obviously confirm them. Yeah. But do we spoil a party, or do we?
Be lovely with that. I think Jordan Pickford would love to spoil a party, wouldn't he? I expect him to have an absolute blinder up there.
I wouldn't play him, I'd play Virginia last game because he's leaving anyway, isn't he? And he's just going to get.
Pickford would be knocking on boys' door.
No,
he'd be banging that.
I get that, but he's going to get so much stick, and Pickford would be like to me, "What are you talking about, Ian?" But I just don't think he needs that abuse that he's going to get.
And what's the worst case scenario?
A lot of people will
expected to get beat.
Disagree with me. But I don't know. I think Virginia's leaving. Just throw him in for his last game.
No. Wouldn't it be great?
If he's the one who stops them from qualifying for the Champions League.
0-0, Chelsea win, Villa win, and Pickford's the hero. 0-0.
Oh, you've just I've changed my mind.
And obviously we all know the song that we can't repeat on here, that obviously all the Everton fans are now singing with Jordan Pickford.
It's a great song. He loves it, doesn't he?
Of course, yeah, and relates to obviously his hatred for Newcastle and obviously Liverpool as well. So I think the Everton fans will be singing that up there all day, won't they, during the game? That song's to Jordan Pickford, so he's got to go in, and I'm sure he'll be. I think a lot of Everton players will be like treating this. But do you know what? I think Moyes, I don't think he will, even though Everton can't go up a place. I think to end the season on a win and the form that Everton have been on, and also it's a game where he said teams, Everton only lost 2 away games under David Moyes.
We're going to say we are better away from home.
And there was no pressure on Everton to go to Nottingham Forest 4 or 5 weeks ago. The pressure was on Forest. Since then, Everton have kind of broken Forest since. They haven't been the same team since.
They haven't.
And Everton went there with no pressure. We were already safe. Pressure was on Forest to get the 3 points. And look what happens. Everton wiped the floor with them.
I just think Sunday, just because of the occasion and everything that the players probably put into that and the aftermath of all the occasion and the celebrations. It just might be, the match might just be a bit of a lull from the players' point of view. I might be wrong. I hope we win. I'm not saying we don't.
Do you think it'd be difficult because we can't go up or down a place now?
Yeah, I think that probably contributes to it as well.
If West Ham,
I just think it'd get yourself motivated and energised for it as well. You just know that you're finished. And if Abdoulaye Doucoure plays, is he going to go full throttle into a 50-50 tackle when he know a Saudi Arabia club might be after him and he could break his leg? I mean,
but there's a lot of whoever we play, they're going to put 5 players there. Calvert-Lewin maybe, Jack Harrison maybe, Ashley Young will probably play his last game.
Yeah.
So whoever's there, it's going to be interesting you say that, because 5 or 6 players, whoever starts in that game, they're going to be thinking,
I can't get injured.
I can't get injured. So is David Moyes' team selection already made up for him to the fact that he can't play them players who are leaving the football club, because they're going to be thinking, I'm sticking my leg in a 50-50 there. I'm going to lose a signing on fee. I'm going to lose a transfer in the summer. So does he play basically the players that are in contract?
Do you think this is a last chance for anyone? Any of the players from Moyes to assess, or do you think he's made his mind up?
Made his mind up. Well made his mind up. And I think there's a lot of players in there that he's made his mind up that he wouldn't mind listening to offers for. James Garner, Nathan Patterson. I think there's players there who are contractors at Everton that he wouldn't mind a bit here. One of these to give us some funds in, which would be a breath of fresh air. So I'd
include, I know I'm a big fan of him, but include Better in that. He's almost played himself into a
transfer.
No, well, he's played himself into a transfer, but he's obviously also played himself into Moyes' reckoning as well. Because I don't think Moyes didn't fancy him, did he, at the start? I think that's changed slightly. But there's two ways of looking at it. He could stay and Moyes has played him in there, but again, there's going to be teams out there thinking Beto can score goals, put a little cheeky bid in for him, see what we can get him for. So there's a couple of players in that situation, I think.
He's not going to play Brozier, is he? He's not going to play the likes of them.
No. So what would you do then? Like, bearing in mind that you've just said there's a couple of players out of contract, he might not want to think, psychologically give their all because they don't want to get injured. It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah,
we haven't got many other players that we could probably choose from.
Half the squad's out of contract, isn't it? Bring your boots if you're going to St James's Park, Evertonians. You'd probably say James Garner.
Pickford up front. Virginia didn't go. That's what I'd do. If Pickford's the one to score the goal.
Mikalenko starts. Branthwaite starts. Obviously, do you know what? Might even play Michael Keane.
Would you?
Even though obviously I'm contradicting myself with the players that are obviously going in the summer. So it's going to be, I don't think he's going to be wanting that many players that won't be at the football club, because what's he gaining out of that? He's gaining nothing out of it if they're leaving the football club. He may experiment big time. It's a perfect opportunity. We can't go down a place, we can't go up a place, as long as we don't get an Iden, which he probably doesn't want, which we've probably got in previous seasons on our last day.
That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about that.
Especially the Geordies up there.
They're just going to be so euphoric because they need to win, aren't they?
And to be honest, if you were in a Newcastle position, you couldn't have handpicked a better team to play. A team that can't go anywhere in position, you can't go down, can't go up. They had their big game the week before, pretty much like Southampton were to us, because we're a team in the league. Southampton already relegated, and Southampton's big game is this weekend. That's their obviously last home game in the Premier League, and it could be for a long period of time.
Southampton already got that point as well to stop them from being the worst team. So
Newcastle probably picked a good Everton team to play at the right time, with a lot of players' contracts up in July. So it's going to be fascinating to see how Moyes works it. But again, if there was a place or prize money at stake, I think Moyes would be at it. But I think, to go back to the original question, we'll be on the beach.
Score prediction then?
3-1
to Newcastle?
Yeah.
I was going to say 2-0. I'm hoping that, it's no reflection of the, Moyes or the quality of the squad or the players that he'll pick. Just think everything that went into Sunday is just maybe a step too far for this Newcastle game coming up.
Dare I say, this team, it doesn't get Idens.
And that's what I'm going to go. I said 2-0, so hopefully it's just not a rout.
Yeah, and you know what? Listen, if we put a performance on up there, it'll be good. In an ideal world, you'd love to see the likes of an Addison Armstrong or some academy players in this game. But it's ideal, isn't it? Pressure's off. You're away from home. If you make a mistake, so what? Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is the perfect game, but there's not many youngsters knocking on the door for first team opportunities, is there? And that's where
it's a perfect opportunity, wouldn't it, to play?
Don't get me going on Everton's academy. We spoke about that in depth in previous podcasts, haven't we? yeah, it'd be ideal if we had one or two youngsters knocking on the door, but we haven't. So it's going to be, he's going to have to mix and match it with players who he can rely on. But yeah, I think he'll experiment big time on Sunday.
Well, I'm not here, and I know you're away as well. So the players might be on the beach. I'm going to be in the lakes.
I'll be on the beach.
You're on the beach.
I'll be on the beach, yeah.
So there you go. So we'll, I guess we'll have to reconvene. Not next week, or well, when are you going to be back on? Do you think?
I'll be back on Thursday.
So we'll get you back on the pod in the next week or two. I think
review the season.
Yeah, well, we're definitely gonna do a review of the season and assess, player performances, best player of the season, who can do better, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Goal of the season.
I'm sure there'll be a couple of those who can do better.
Hey.
Any final thoughts before we shoot?
No, do you know what? Sunday, great. Absolutely brilliant. As I touched on there before, if you met someone that's not into football and questions you why you love football and why you're obsessed and your love for Everton is off the charts, then you put them in the middle of L4 on Sunday morning, and then they'd understand quite quickly what it means to Evertonians and their love for the football club. And yeah, it was eye-watering, it was emotional, and as David Moyes said, bottle every bit of that and bring it down to the Bromley Moor. And if we do that, I think we've got an exciting future with this manager, hopefully with the owners, with the recruitment, and the next generation of Everton fans. They've been starved of success. Yeah. And that was so rewarding to see on Sunday, that even though with the lack of success we've had, that there's still Everton fans so super proud of their football club. And long may that continue.
Okay, well, that is all for today's show. As always, please give us a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekends. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Tony Scott, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.